Pokémon. I have a racial value point system. Chapter 61. Articuno. Use the freezing ray quickly to use the reaction force to stop the speed of descent. Seeing the situation of Articuno, in order to prevent it from hitting the ground and causing secondary damage, Yuming quickly gave orders. Haha, so naive, the electric shock monster is inserted into its mouth to interrupt it. Ouch. The electric monster responded and immediately activated its skill. The falling Articuno only heard a roar from above. Before it could use the freezing ray, it felt a foreign body in its mouth. In a moment, Articuno sank heavily into the ground several meters high and could not move. Opportunity. End it. Electrocute the monster. Land vertically and aim at Articuno's slender waist. Use inertia to perform a flying knee kick. Ah! The electric shock monster in the sky above, facing down, adjusted its body parallel to the ground, bent its knees and flashed light towards Articuno, and with the blessing of inertia, its speed became faster and faster. In a flash, the shining knee hit Articuno's kidney heavily. Articuno, with a stick in its mouth and its kidney hit, had bulging eyes and saliva flowing down the iron stick. Most of the red light in its eyes dissipated. Then the pupils began to sag and become numb. Finally, the eyes closed weakly and lost the ability to fight. Looking at Articuno, who had lost the ability to fight, Zhaofeng approached the Charizard next to them and whispered a few instructions in their ears. Come back, Articuno. Seeing that Articuno had lost his ability to fight, Yuming picked up the black Pokeball and aimed it at Articuno, ready to take it back. Suddenly, a green light flashed, and the black Pokeball in Yuming's hand split into two and fell to the ground. Yuming looked at the falling Pokeball, stunned for a moment, and then felt the same stick that Articuno held in his mouth appear in his mouth. Ah! He retched, and then the collar on the back of his neck was lifted up. He turned around and saw that Charizard had come behind him without him knowing when. He was picked up and brought to the ground like a chicken, while his mount Pidgeot and the helicopter in the sky were also shot down by several figures, and the pilot and Pidgeot were tied up. Ah! You are really capable, you even managed to deal with Articuno, really? No. Wrong. Ah. Zhaofeng waved the wrench in his hand with a gloomy face and gritted his teeth, walked to Yuming, raised his hand and patted Yuming's cheek with the wrench. You little brat, let me go, or our boss won't let you go. Yuming's eyes seemed to want to eat Zhaofeng alive, and he continued to shout. It seems that the skill effect has ended, and your mouth is free again. Come on, stick. Zhaofeng grinned and used the skill of inserting the mouth on Yuming. Woo woo woo. Fang Kaiwo. Yuming barked vaguely. Seeing that it was too noisy, Zhaofeng danced with the wrench in his hand, leaving a shadow, and hit him on the head with a bang. Yuming felt a sharp pain in his head, and then his eyes went black and he fainted. The old routine, stripping off the clothes, tying him up, throwing him aside. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the task and obtaining 100 racial value points. Hehe, the reward has arrived. Zhaofeng stroked his chin and laughed happily. Thank you, little brother. Nini. At this time, the uncle and the mini dragon who were almost forgotten by Zhaofeng came to Zhaofeng and bowed to thank him. You're welcome. It's my duty. Zhaofeng waved his hand calmly. Now that the matter has been resolved, Zhaofeng began to call for help. The old number, one-stop service, Yuming and others were sent to prison and locked up carefully. Articuno was out of control because of the destruction of the strange Pokeball. Zhaofeng fed it some orange fruit to restore its strength. It looked at Zhaofeng with strange eyes, and after a thankful cry, it flew away. Ni. Zhaofeng's Haxorus was already playing with the mini dragon in the water. Uncle, I have a piece of advice for you. If you don't want people to know that there are mini dragons here, then don't put the photos in such a conspicuous place. Zhaofeng had glanced at the photos on the wall when he passed through the building before. Now that the matter has been resolved, Zhaofeng, standing on the shore, looked at the happily playing Haxorus and decided to remind Uncle Caesar. Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry to bother you. Caesar scratched his head and agreed embarrassedly. Ni. At this time, the Hakron from Dragon Valley held a beautiful box in its mouth and handed it to Zhaofeng. Is this for me? Zhaofeng looked at it curiously. Ni. Hakron nodded. Thank you, Hakron. Seeing this, Zhaofeng thanked him and carefully opened the box. A diamond-shaped crystal treasure with a blue halo and a drop of liquid inside was quietly lying in the center of the box. According to the system's prompt, it can be used as a material for the evolution of Gyarados. After understanding it, Zhaofeng carefully put it into his backpack and waited for the evolution of Magikarp. After having a quick meal in front of Caesar's enthusiasm in the wilderness area, Zhaofeng's purpose of coming here was also completed, so he planned to say goodbye. Uncle, thank you for your hospitality. We will continue our journey. Take good care of the mini dragons. Goodbye. Okay, goodbye, don't worry. Caesar nodded and agreed. Continue to move towards Red Lotus City with the Charizard. During the journey, the 100 attribute points obtained were divided into 2 parts of 50, and added to the physical attack of Haxorus and Gyarados. Yes, it was indeed Gyarados, with the experience fed by the partners and the crystal given by Haxorus in Dragon Nest. Magikarp has evolved with the Mega Evolution Stone obtained before, and now the level has reached 27 and can evolve freely into a Super Evolution form. The levels of the Charizard have also been improved through continuous battles. Charizard LV58, Electabuzz LV56, Lizard King LV50, Gengar LV47, and Haxorus LV40. Name: Gyarados LV27. Features: swimming freely, exceptional. Skills: Destruction Ray, Final Impact, Crushing, Rain, Water Tail, Frozen Fang, Storm, Slam, Leap, Salt Water, Dragon Dance, Water Cannon, Rumble, Waterfall Climb. Physical attack: 125, 155 plus 100. Total: 540, 640 plus 100. Oh, is that Dasha Valley ahead? The old man sent me a message saying he wanted to study fossils and asked me to help him get some. Zhaofeng asked curiously as he looked at the canyon in front of him. Xiaofeng was commissioned by his father to come to Dasha Valley. A group of people looked at the endless stream of people holding pickaxes in front of them, constantly digging here and there, and were a little confused for a while. Wow! Where is the group? This is. Hey, little brother, come here. Xiaofeng suddenly heard a vulgar voice in his ear. Xiaofeng turned his head to look at the place where the voice came from. He saw a bed sheet spread on the ground with various items on it. A man with a middle part of his hair about 1.5 meters tall waved at him. Xiaofeng came to the middle part of his hair curiously. Uncle, what do you want me to do? Xiaofeng asked. Hey, little brother, this is your first time here. Are you here to dig for fossils? A sly look flashed across the eyes of the middle-parted man. Wow, uncle is so smart. Xiaofeng nodded innocently. Hee, that's it. As a person who has experienced it, I'm giving you a sincere suggestion. Do you see what I put in front of you? If you want to dig up the perfect fossil, the tools are indispensable for the industry. Look at this hard hat. It is strong and durable. You can't buy it at a loss or get cheated. There are also, the uncle saw such a pure young man. If he didn't give him a meal, it would be a shame to his empty pockets, so he started to talk endlessly. Stop, 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 uncle, do you think I look like an idiot? Xiaofeng touched his cheek seriously at the middle-parted man. Like. After hearing Zhaofeng's question, the middle-parted man thought for a moment and nodded seriously. A huge, character appeared on Zhaofeng's head. Then Zhaofeng reached back into his backpack, took out the long object that had been with him for a long time, and gave the man a fake smile. What now? Of course not. How could it be possible? Whoever says he looks like me will be angry. Okay. The man looked behind Zhaofeng, and saw the slowly emerging black wings and sharp long tail. Sweat kept dripping down his face. Come on, little brother, I'll give you 50 yuan. Thank you. The wretched man with a middle part saw that the atmosphere was a little bit awkward, so he carefully took out a pickaxe with a wooden handle and a fine iron head from the package behind him and handed it to Xiaofeng. Oh, this thing is good, do you have a more durable one? Xiaofeng shook the pickaxe in his hand, waved it in the air a few times, and nodded with satisfaction. Ah. Yes, how about this one, made of stainless steel? The man with the middle part was stunned for a moment, then he reacted and took out another pickaxe with a metallic luster and handed it to Zhaofeng. Zhaofeng's eyes lit up when he saw this. Name your price. 500. The man asked tentatively. Deal, here, a total of 550. One hand for the money, the other for the goods. Xiaofeng took out the elf coin and quickly put it into the middle-parted man's hand, then grabbed the pickaxe with a flash of his hand, looked at it, and put it behind his waist. The Dasha Valley was too crowded, so Xiaofeng found a secluded open space, with the pickaxe in his hand flying, raising and lowering it with great anticipation. Hey, 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 hey. Xiaofeng kept digging downwards. The Charizard were like curious babies, surrounding Xiaofeng and looking forward to the upcoming harvest. Ding. Oh, it's shipped so soon. The touch of the pick head hitting a hard object came. He moved the pick away and looked into the hole. A corner of a black rock was exposed because of the excavation. Xiaofeng's eyes were shining, and he squatted down and started digging. Finally, a black rock the size of a basketball was picked up by Xiaofeng. There were some familiar yet unfamiliar patterns on it. Xiaofeng carried the rock to the professional fossil identification area in Dasha Valley. He handed it to a white-haired old man who seemed to be experienced, paid the identification fee, and asked the old man to help identify it. The old man took out a magnifying glass and observed it carefully. After a long time, he stood up and nodded happily, looked at Xiaofeng and said, "Congratulations, little brother, you are so lucky. After my professional identification, this is a fossil of the ancient pterosaur kunkan, which is very valuable for academic research and a huge discovery. It can help us accurately determine the true size range of ancient pterosaur fossils. You have found a treasure." Xiaofeng, with a gray body and the elves, hobbled back to the place where the fossil was found with the identified fossil. After the gray-haired Xiaofeng came back to his senses, he lifted the fossil high and smashed it hard into the hole he had dug out before. A cracking sound was heard by Xiaofeng and his group. Before Xiaofeng could react, the ground beneath his feet collapsed instantly. Xiaofeng and his group felt that the sky was getting farther and farther away from them. Bang! After a long time, Xiaofeng and his group finally fell freely, their feet inserted straight into the ground to a depth of 1 meter. They stood upright like a telephone pole. Lifting his feet hard, Xiaofeng pulled himself out of the ground. Looking around, the cave was pitch black, without any light source. "Charizard, bring some light to illuminate your beauty." Xiaofeng called out to the person beside him. Roar! The fire-breathing dragon heard Xiaofeng's voice, and the flames on its tail began to burn. In an instant, the light filled the entire cave. Xiaofeng looked ahead with interest. "Everyone, let's go in and take a look." Moving forward into the depths of the cave, Xiaofeng and his party kept moving forward, and finally came to the end of the cave. In front of them stood a milky white boulder about 2 meters high and engraved with unknown runes. "Wow, I should be able to get this to the old man." Xiaofeng kept looking around the boulder. "Everyone, come and help me carry it out." Satisfied, Xiaofeng called the elves to help him bring the boulder back to the ground. Xiaofeng led the elves forward and squatted down, wrapping his arms around the boulder. In an instant, the boulder burst out with a dazzling white light that enveloped the entire cave. The white light dissipated, and Xiaofeng and his group disappeared. "Ah, you are sick, turn on such a bright light." Xiaofeng raised his hand to cover his eyes, then slowly opened his eyes. He looked around. Xiaofeng and his party were in the center of a round platform, with 4 pillars with elf-like pictures and text standing in the east, west, south and north. In front of him, a royal sister in witch costume was looking at Xiaofeng and his party nervously. "Hello, respected hero, welcome to your arrival. You can call me Fanluo." The witch bowed and saluted with her hands in front of her. Sister, are you calling me?" Xiaofeng looked at Fan Luo in confusion, and pointed at himself with his index finger uncertainly. Big sister, he actually called me big sister, do I look old?" As soon as Xiaofeng finished speaking, the royal sister raised her eyebrows high. Although the villain in her heart roared loudly, she still did not dare to expose too much in front of Xiaofeng. Haha, yes, it's you. I summoned you. Oh, really? In that case, you must have summoned me for some purpose. Tell me, how am I supposed to get back? For some reason, a large number of elves have gathered outside the city walls around my town. I hope you can lend a hand and help us defeat the leaders of those elves. I believe that this will allow the elves to return to their original place. As for the method of returning, I will tell you when the matter is over. Threaten me. Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Fan Luo with a smile on his face. How is that possible? Fan Luo hurriedly bowed and answered. Hehe, take me to see the situation first. Zhaofeng touched his chin and looked at Fan Luo. Fan Luo took Zhaofeng to the town wall and saw elves flashing in the forest in the distance. The number was estimated to be about 1,000. Zhaofeng frowned and looked at the elves in the distance. He thought for a moment. Elves generally don't deliberately gather near human activities. There must be some reason. I'll go find the location of the other leader. You wait here for me. Xiaofeng said to Fan Luo beside him, and then led the fire-breathing dragons out of the city gate and headed for the distance. What Xiaofeng didn't know was that just as he left, Fan Luo on the city wall had an imperceptible flash of strange color in his eyes. Xiao Feng came to the uninhabited grove to the right of the elves, gathering place, made sure there was no one around, used the air travel to escape into the void, and sneaked towards the direction where the elves gathered. This should be it. Xiaofeng and his group passed through the elf-dense area in front and came to the back of the area. They saw an elf covered with tentacles, with red eyes looking at the human town in the distance. Name: Giant Vine LV64. Hello, can we talk? Xiaofeng showed up and asked the giant vine to negotiate. Humans, give us our treasure back. The giant vine attacked Xiaofeng, who suddenly appeared in front of it. Countless rocks were suspended and surrounded by some mysterious force, and in a blink of an eye, they smashed towards Xiaofeng. Looks like we still have to fight. Xiaofeng sighed and said to the air. Lizard King, it's up to you. Leaf Blade continuous slash. Chamo. A voice came from the void, and the Lizard King flashed in front of Zhaofeng, condensing leaf blades in his hands and arms, and kept swinging them forward. Clang, clang, clang. As the Lizard King continued to swing, the air around him formed an impenetrable barrier of sword light, and all the rocks shot at him were instantly split into two into four, and finally shattered. Seeing that his skills had no effect, the giant vine gathered the power of nature in front of him, rubbed his hands into a green energy ball and rushed towards the Lizard King. Lizard King, see through, then use crazy plant. Chamo, the Lizard King's eyes were covered with green light, and he swayed slightly, easily dodging the energy ball. Immediately afterwards, the Lizard King squatted down and supported the ground with both hands. In an instant, sharp and hard iron-like roots of giant trees rose from the ground and pierced the giant vines in all directions without blind spots. Bang, 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 the sound of crazy plants hitting hard objects came. The giant vine crossed its hands, and a transparent wall in front of it blocked all the tree root spikes. After the giant vine successfully blocked, it held its palms in the air, and the light energy gathered on it, and then a beam of light rushed towards the Lizard King. The Lizard King flashed, and then used the leaf blade slash. Xiaofeng's command was promptly conveyed to the Lizard King's ears. Upon hearing this, the Lizard King leapt across several spaces and came to the giant vine. In the eyes of the giant vine, green lights flashed continuously in different directions around it, and its tentacles were shaved cleanly and kept falling off, leaving only white strips on the earth. End it, cross scissors. Seeing that the Lizard King had no more head to shave, Xiaofeng ordered the Lizard King to end the fight. The Lizard King followed the order and flashed behind the giant vine. He crossed his hands and shone with a silver-white luster, and stabbed at the two kidney stones of the giant vine, intending to reduce the burden on its future life. The giant vine suddenly felt a sharp tingling and numbness on the left and right sides of the lower back, and then felt that his body was hollowed out, and he collapsed, and circles appeared in his eyes. Done. Well done, Lizard King. Xiaofeng snapped his fingers, praised the Lizard King, and then ran to the giant vine and tied it up with the tentacles that the Lizard King had shaved off. Xiaofeng had learned professional binding postures in the early stage. No, it was knowledge. After a while, the giant vine lay flat on the ground like a zongzi, and Xiaofeng took out the orange fruit to feed the giant vine. After about a minute or two, the giant vine woke up faintly. Because of the numbness from time to time behind it, it looked at Xiaofeng in front of it with a evasive look. You're awake now, how's it going? Can we have a good talk now? Xiaofeng squatted down and looked at the giant vine that was tied up and spoke. Human, not only did you steal our treasures, but now you treat me like this, your conscience is broken. Seeing that Zhaofeng did not take the next step, the giant vine cried a few times with a little cry. Are you saying that the humans in that town stole your treasures? Xiaofeng looked at the giant vine in confusion. Yes, that is the precious treasure that Celebi left us. Hey, can you understand me? Yes, by the way, what is the specific effect of the treasure you mentioned? Xiaofeng's eyes flashed an imperceptible scarlet. It's a treasure that allows us to summon heroes to help solve incidents that we can't handle. The giant vine saw the flash of red in Xiaofeng's eyes and spoke in fear. Oh, haha, do you think I look like a brave man? Xiaofeng smiled again and looked at the giant vine. Like. The giant vine replied tentatively. Bingo, you got it right. I was used as a gun. Xiaofeng stood up and squinted his eyes to look in the direction of the town. Are you really a hero? The giant vine sorted out the information in Xiaofeng's words, and a look of disbelief flashed in his eyes. Haha, I'm not a hero. Heroes are boring. So how do you send a hero back after you summon him? Xiaofeng laughed and asked about the method of returning to reality. Sir Celebi said that as long as 3 days pass, the hero will automatically return to the original timeline. At this time, the giant vine was convinced of its own thoughts and quickly responded. Okay, Lizard King, untie it, and let's go back to the city. Xiaofeng got the information he wanted, took a long breath, and gave an order to the Lizard King. Upon hearing this, the Lizard King's hand flashed in an instant, and the giant vine's body no longer felt tight. Xiaofeng turned around and walked towards the town, with a sense of loneliness, depression, and loneliness. He suddenly stopped while walking, turned back in a wretched manner, and asked the giant vine for the most critical information. Oh, I overacted and forgot to ask, what does your treasure look like? It's a milky white stone half a person's height. The giant vine replied to the frivolous Xiaofeng with a respectful tone. Xiaofeng, who got the information, made an okay gesture, and ran quickly, speeding towards the direction of the town. My dear brave man, you are back. How is the situation? Fan Luo looked at Xiaofeng who had returned to the town and hurried over to greet him. I'm back. I'm observing from the edge, but I haven't found the location of their leader yet. Let me take a day off and go out to look for him tomorrow. Don't worry, I'll solve it as soon as I find it. Xiaofeng nodded and looked at Fan Luo with a smile. Yes, thank you for your hard work, brave man. Please follow me, I will take you to a place to rest. Fan Luo looked like you have worked hard, then stretched out his right hand to make a gesture of invitation, and then walked into the town. Xiaofeng followed closely behind, and soon after, Fan Luo brought Xiaofeng to a manor room not far from the city wall. My dear brave man, this is the resting place that I prepared for you early. Take your time to rest. I'm leaving first. If you need anything, you can ask the servants in the manor. Fan Luo opened the door, turned around and smiled at Xiaofeng. Haha, thank you. I'll rest first, you don't have to worry about me. Xiaofeng smiled at Fan Luo in front of him, walked into the room and closed the door. Seeing this, Fan Luo turned and left. After Xiaofeng entered the room, he locked the door, and then followed Fan Luo with the elves. Following her steps, they slowly left the manor. After a long time, Fan Luo Manor stopped at a loft not far away, turned around, took out the key, opened the door and entered. Tisk, what kind of hero did this broken treasure summon? He can't even do this. The elves beside him look strong, but I didn't expect them to be empty shells. Fan Luo, who came to the attic hall, looked at the milky white rock in front of him and kicked it with disdain. Haha, that's true. Those summoned here are not necessarily heroes, and I never said I was a hero. A light laugh came from Fan Luo's ear. Fan Luo turned around and saw Xiaofeng appear behind him, looking at him with a grin on his face. No, Fan Luo wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Xiaofeng's next words. You don't have to explain anything. I'm not interested anymore, give me the stick. Xiaofeng walked forward to Fan Luo's side and looked at the thing in front of him, while Fan Luo's mouth was propped up by an unknown stick, and he knelt on the ground and retched. Oh, this should be the treasure that the giant vine mentioned. Isn't this a smaller version of that thing? Electric beast, I'll give it to you to keep for now, and return it to the giant vine and the others later. Xiaofeng said to the electric beast beside him. The electric beast nodded in response, then lifted Bai Shi up with both hands and held him in his arms. Zhao Feng came to Fan Luo, squatted down and looked at her who was still retching, as if he was asking her herself, and seemed to be talking to himself. What should I do with you next? Xiao Feng took out the stainless steel pickaxe from behind, held the pickaxe handle upside down and pointed it at Fan Luo. 10,000 words omitted here. Actually, nothing happened. Because the door suddenly opened, and a feminine-looking man walked in and asked in a hoarse voice, Fan Luo, how is the matter going? Afraid that the air would suddenly become quiet, the feminine man looked at Xiao Feng, who was gesturing with his stick at Fan Luo, and the iron stick in Fan Luo's mouth, with a blank look in his eyes. Who am I? Where am I? What are you doing? Are young people playing so much now? Oh, there is an accomplice. Xiao Feng blinked and looked at the man. No, who are you? And tell your elf to put down the rock, it's not yours to take. The man reacted soon, looking at the rock treasure in the arms of the electric shock monster, and ordered with a gloomy face. Oh, is it something you can take? This thing doesn't seem to belong to you. Xiao Feng narrowed his eyes and looked at the man. Asshole, I said put it down, go ahead and grab it for me. Seeing that Zhao Feng had no intention of returning it, the man took out a rock elf ball with a sinister look and threw it out. Then a bipedal elf with giant sickles in both hands appeared in front of Zhao Feng. Name: Scythe Helmet LV-58. Want to fight? I leave it to you, Hakron. Seeing that the other party was ready to fight, Zhao Feng turned around and nodded to Hakron, letting him come on stage. Scythe Helmet, use rock slide. The man's hoarse voice came, and Scythe Helmet swung his two sickles. 6 or 7 large rocks instantly condensed and floated in front of him, and then suddenly smashed towards Zhao Feng. Hakron, Iron Tail. Smash them. Xiao Feng quickly gave the order to fight back. The Hakron whistled softly, and its tail instantly turned into metal, leaving several afterimages on the large rocks that were shot forward. Bang, bang, bang. The big rocks shattered and exploded in an instant, falling to the ground. Flash, then Water Tail. Haxorin, who had broken the rock slide skill, came to Scythe Helmet's side in a strange flash under Zhao Feng's instruction. The water element of the tail gathered and rotated and attached to it, and then it was quickly pulled out in an instant. Scythe Helmet felt a flash of blue light in his eyes, and then he felt a fierce pain on his cheek. Ha! The whipping sounded violently, and the sickle helmet was pulled off the ground by the powerful force, gliding and flying in the low air, bringing with it bursts of whistling sounds, until it hit the inner wall of the attic and embedded in the wall with a bang. The painful howl of the sickle helmet reached the ears of everyone. He had been seriously injured because of the whipping effect of the water tail. Why is its damage so high? The man's eyes trembled as he watched Hakron, who had severely injured Scythe Helmet with one blow, was horrified and made a final struggle. Scythe Helmet, use the freezing ray for me. After the order was given, the cold air continued to gather in the mouth of the Scythe Helmet. Put it in your mouth. Then the dragon god will swoop down and put an end to it. Xiao Feng gave the order, and an iron rod was inserted straight into the mouth of the sickle helmet, interrupting the skill he was about to release. Because he was embedded in the wall and could not move, and because his attack was interrupted, he could only make a sound. The sickle helmet watched the Haxorus fly high, and then his body was wrapped in blue dragon-shaped energy armor, and it rushed towards him at a high speed. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the Haxorus wrapped in energy hit the sickle helmet's head hard. The sickle helmet felt that the world was upside down, and everything in his eyes became blurred. Finally, his pupils were dilated and he lost his ability to fight. Seeing that the sickle helmet had lost his ability to fight, the man turned around and tried to run out. But the moment he turned around, a figure was reflected in his eyes. Seeing that the other party wanted to run, Zhao Feng had already blocked the door with a flash. Seeing this, the man immediately clenched his right fist and swung it towards Zhao Feng. Tian Nai, forced to turn around, stick here. Just when the man thought he could hit Xiao Feng grinned and blurted out 2 skills. The man instantly felt a pair of invisible big hands pushing him, and he turned his back to Xiao Feng, and then an unknown object propped up and inserted into his mouth. A strong sense of discomfort came over him, and just as he was about to vomit, a burst of heart-wrenching pain came from both sides of his waist behind him again. The reason was that Xiao Feng was holding a long object in each hand and stabbed the man's waist with his back to him. After a while, the man collapsed to the ground. Xiao Feng closed the door, held the man's right leg, and placed him side by side with Fan Luo in the horrified eyes of Fan Luo. On the way, the man's face became red due to constant friction with the ground, and his nose was bleeding. Done. Zhao Feng put down the man's legs, clapped his hands, and looked at the two with satisfaction. After Zhao Feng asked Charizard to watch over the two, he began to search in the attic. After an unknown amount of time, Zhao Feng came back with a bundle of long ropes. Zhao Feng tied up the two and let Charizard fly high into the sky like a chicken to the outside of the town, allowing the two to experience the pleasure of high-altitude transportation. Zhao Feng and the elves took the rocks and flew out of the town. Once again coming to the place where they fought with the giant vine, Zhao Feng saw the giant vine sitting on a rock thinking about life. Then there were two, bang bang, sounds of heavy objects falling to the ground, which frightened the thinking giant vine so much that it shook and dropped the rock. Hey, are you a thinker? Here, this should be yours. I'll give you these two humans. They should be the culprits who stole your treasure. Xiao Feng pointed at the two people who fell in the rock, and spoke. Thank you, brave man. Looking at the returned treasure and the captured thief, the giant vine bowed in gratitude. Well, I've already said that I'm not a hero. You guys can handle these two. I'm leaving first. Xiao Feng waved his hand and left with the elves. Two screams came from behind. Ah, I'm finally back. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Feng and his party returned to the original cave. The huge rock had disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Alas, the task is not yet completed. It gives me a headache. Xiao Feng scratched his head and muttered. Roar! At this moment a faint roar seemed to come from between the cave and the ground. Is there a mezzanine? Let's dig a passage upwards. Let's go and take a look. Zhao Feng, in line with the principle of creating a way out if there is no way out, asked the elves to use their digging skills to dig a passage out. Charizard danced with its claws, and the electric shock beast and the Hakron kept poking upwards. After a long time, Zhao Feng and his group of heads popped out of a pit, looking at the underground mezzanine. Then, they grabbed the edge of the pit with both hands and climbed up. At this moment, Zhao Feng and the elves were covered in mud, looking like wild men. The sound came from inside. Zhao Feng looked at the direction of the deep layer and touched his chin, then led the elves deeper into it. Soon after, in a huge empty rock room, Zhao Feng and his party looked into the eyes of a pair of huge eyes in the sky. Well, fossil pterosaurs should also be considered fossils. I am such a genius. Xiao Feng looked at the creatures staring at him, a brainstorm flashed through his mind, and he slapped his thighs with both hands and thought wittily. Name: Fossil Pterosaur LV48. Attributes: Rock, Flying. Features: Hard head commonly known as Iron Head. Skills: Destruction Light, Primal Power, High Speed Movement, Slam, Ultrasonic Wave, Scary Face, Wing Attack, Iron Head, Rock Slide, Ultimate Impact. Race Value: Go Gyarados, this opponent is up to you, Mega. Evolve. Zhao Feng unilaterally decided the opponent for the fossil pterosaur. As the colorful light shone, a new form of Gyarados appeared in front of everyone. It had wings on its back, 2 dragon whiskers of the same length as its body, and red dragon scales on both sides of its body. It gave people a ferocious and brutal feeling. Gyarados, the battle has begun, use Dragon Dance. Roar. Gyarados roared in response, and then his entire body spun in circles in the air. After completing the rotation, Gyarados was surrounded by red light, and his attack speed was increased. The fossil pterosaur on the opposite side also roared, and dozens of rocks condensed on his body and shot at Gyarados. Gyarados, pull back your tail with the water stream. Seeing the opponent launch an attack, Zhao Feng immediately ordered Gyarados to fight back. Gyarados' tail was covered by the water stream in the blink of an eye, and then it kept whipping forward, hitting the rock shot by the opponent. The rock flew back at a faster speed than when it came, hitting the fossil pterosaur in the air. There was a bang bang bang. The fossil pterosaur that was hit had red eyes because of the pain, and then it was wrapped in a purple cyclone. Its wings flapped and it rushed straight towards Gyarados. Oh, Ultimate Charge. Gyarados, we'll use Ultimate Charge as well. Go for it, strength is your strong point. Xiaofeng shouted at Gyarados. After receiving the command, Gyarados was also wrapped in purple cyclones, and leapt out and rushed towards the approaching fossil pterosaur. Boom! The two sides collided in a straight line. In the end, the fossil pterosaur was thrown back by the powerful force of Gyarados, and hit the rock wall above heavily, embedded in it, and then let out a mournful cry, and fell heavily to the ground, raising dust. It was obviously seriously injured. The fossil pterosaur fell to the ground with its ancient and tenacious will, and condensed a destructive death light in its mouth and shot towards Gyarados. Gyarados, swap and finish it. Looking at the destructive death ray that was shot at him at high speed, Xiaofeng shouted and gave the final order. Instantly, Gyarados roared and activated the swap skill, exchanging positions with the Pteranodon. The Pteranodon was hit by his own skill with a confused look on his face, and then his eyes turned black and spun in circles, losing his ability to fight. Go, Pokeball! Seeing that the battle was over, Xiaofeng threw a blank Pokeball from his backpack and hit the fossil pterosaur on the ground. Buzz! After a few breaths, the sound of ding came into Xiaofeng's ears, and then the Pokeball disappeared, apparently being sent to Professor Oak. Ah, the mission is finally accomplished. Change back, Gyarados. After completing the task, Xiaofeng and the elves continued to dig the hole upwards and finally returned to the ground. The hole they dug was in a very remote location. No wonder no one had discovered the underground situation. Xiaofeng covered the hole and took the elves to a nearby hotel to change into clothes covered in mud. After completing the task, Xiaofeng and the elves continued to move towards Honglian City. Wow! We finally arrived at Honglian City. Xiaofeng, who was now on the street of Honglian City, sighed. At this moment, a familiar yet unfamiliar tangled girl's voice came from Xiaofeng's right-hand side. Hello, please give me a hot spring ice cream. Ah, it's so difficult, I don't know what to choose. Xiaofeng turned around and saw a beautiful girl who was about 15 or 16 years old, with blonde hair that reached below her waist and two black teardrop-shaped hair accessories on each side of her head. At this time, she was standing in front of an ice cream stand on the street of Honglian Island, with one hand on her chin, looking undecided. Is this her? How did she appear here? Xiaofeng murmured, stepped forward to her side and spoke softly. Since it is so difficult to choose, why don't you consider having one of all, Miss Zulin? Zulin asked and turned her head to look, only to see a boy who was as handsome as the reader, standing beside her with several elves, smiling at her. After a moment of stunned silence, she asked curiously, You know me? Ah, yes, I covet. Ah, I saw you on TV a long time ago, the youngest Sinnoh champion in recent years. Xiaofeng almost said the wrong thing, but luckily he managed to smooth it over. Of course, he didn't lie, it was indeed on TV, but the TV was from his previous life. Haha, is that so? That's just an empty title. Zulin spoke calmly, but she was wondering in her heart, when have I ever been on TV? You are too modest. By the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Xiaofeng. I wonder why Miss Zulin came to the Kanto region. Xiaofeng praised her and asked the question he was concerned about. Just call me Zulin, I'm here. Hey, sir, would you like some more ice cream? Just as the two were about to continue the conversation, the boss beside them asked weakly. Sorry, boss, please pack up all the flavors of ice cream. I'll pay for this lady. Xiaofeng looked at the helpless look in the ice cream boss's eyes, scratched his head guiltily, and answered. The boss's eyes lit up and he quickly started to pack. Okay, 2,000 elf coins. Xiaofeng took out the money and handed it to the boss. He and Charizard took an ice cream of one flavor each, then Xiaofeng turned around and handed the ice cream in his left hand to Zulin. Oh, there are too many, how can I finish them all? Zulan looked at the ice cream that Xiaofeng handed to her and took it subconsciously. She looked at Xiaofeng in distress because he bought so many ice creams. After sighing, she thanked him, but I still want to thank you, Xiaofeng. Hee. Xiaofeng touched his nose and smiled happily. The two people who bought ice cream were walking on the street, eating and talking. So, Xiaofeng came to Honglian City to participate in the gym competition. Yeah, I only need 2 more Pokémon badges to participate in the Kanto Regional League tournament. Xiaofeng mumbled as he quickly finished the ice cream in his hand, then took the backpack from behind and opened the zipper in front of him, showing the badges he had obtained to Zulin. Zulin looked at the badges in the backpack, a strange color flashed in her eyes, and thought to herself, main tournament badges. It seems that Zhaofeng is not simple. Then she smiled calmly and nodded. That's great. Zhaofeng grinned and asked curiously, by the way, Zulin, I wanted to ask you just now, why are you here? As for me, after the match in Sinnoh was over, I planned to travel to Kanto to relax, and then I heard that there were legendary Pokémon here, so I came here to try my luck and see if I could see the true appearance of the Kanto legend. Zulin licked the ice cream in her hand slowly. So, I hope you can get what you want. Xiao Feng wished. Thank you again for your ice cream, Zhaofeng. It's time to say goodbye. I still need to find out more about the legendary elves. See you again if we are lucky enough. After eating the ice cream, Zulin took out a tissue from her pocket and wiped the corners of her mouth. She waved to Zhaofeng and said goodbye. Really? Then goodbye and have a safe journey. Xiao Feng also waved, a hint of reluctance flashed in his eyes. Looking at the receding figure, Xiao Feng whispered softly, I don't know if there will be a chance to meet again. Then, in the resentful eyes of Charizard, he snatched the ice cream from his hand and ate it in big mouthfuls. Xiaofeng, who met Zhu Lan, came to the location of Honglian Gym on the map listlessly, scratched his hair while looking at the ruins in front of him. I met Zhu Lan, and forgot about the relocation of Honglian Gym. By the way, what was the plot in the original book? I forgot it because it was too long ago. It seems to be related to time. Well, forget it, let's go to the Pokémon Center to rest for a night and think of a solution tomorrow. With nothing else to do, Xiaofeng walked towards the Pokémon Center on Honglian Island. Sorry, little brother, there is no room in the Elf Center. Xiaofeng and his group walked bleakly on the street, and the sky was gradually shrouded in darkness. Little brother over there, here. Zhaofeng, who didn't know where this place was, heard a strong voice in his ears. Turning around, he saw an old man with a silver afro and a mustache waving at Zhaofeng. Then Zhaofeng crossed his arms, stepped back a few steps in panic, and looked at the old man in front of him warily. Uncle, you are not the silver devil who is said to attack handsome young men like me late at night, don't come over here. The uncle had a black question mark on his face when he heard it, and then he opened his mouth and showed 2 rows of sharp teeth. Handsome boy, where are you? You are not talking about yourself, are you? I don't like you that much. Oh, that's not the case. I was looking for a place to rest. Oh, I see. Are you a pimp? Xiaofeng was relieved to hear what his uncle said, and then pointed at his uncle with sudden realization. Don't guess, I just want to ask if you are looking for a place to rest. The uncle yelled at Zhaofeng speechlessly. It's not what it is, why are you shouting so loudly? Xiaofeng covered his ears and pouted. Uncle, is there a place where I can rest? Is that a decent place? A decent place? I won't go if it's not a decent place. Of course we are serious, we are a formal B&B with a business license. The uncle responded to Zhaofeng and whispered bitterly. If people couldn't guess my riddle, there would be no customers. How could I come here to solicit customers in the middle of the night? Haha, so that's it, uncle, come on, take me there quickly. Seeing that the uncle looked bitter and resentful, Xiaofeng quickly stopped asking, reached out and pulled the uncle, asking him to take him to rest. Well, this is a coincidence. Zhaofeng came to the B&B building under the guidance of the uncle. He was stunned when he looked at the clock on it. The memory of the dead suddenly attacked him. After going around in circles, he achieved his goal again. Turning his head to look at the uncle with the afro again, a sense of familiarity finally hit him. Sha Bo. This turned out to have other vests. Finally, Zhaofeng sighed, forget it, let's enjoy the hot spring first. He walked into the B&B. At Sha Bo's hospitality, Zhaofeng, who had a meal, took the elves to soak in the hot spring. Just when Zhaofeng was leaning on the edge of the pool and soaking comfortably, and was about to fall asleep, there was a sudden click. A huge rock behind him quickly moved from the women's bathhouse, destroying the barrier separating the men's and women's bathhouses, revealing a downward passage. Zhaofeng was startled and turned his head to look. The 4 eyes met. It's so big, it's not right either. Why is Zulin here? Xiao Feng's eyes widened in shock, and then he could hear the sound of swallowing saliva. Ah! Zulin in the women's bathhouse was also stunned, then she quickly squatted down and screamed. Turn around quickly. Oh, okay. Zhao Feng came back to his senses after hearing Zulin's voice, and quickly turned around with his back to Zulin. After a while of rustling, Zulin's voice came again. Okay, turn around. Zhao Feng turned around and saw Zulin, who was dressed neatly, looking at him with a ruddy face. He didn't know what to say for a moment, and Zhao Feng was a little stunned when he saw Zulin like this. Zulin, why are you here? Zhao Feng, who reacted after a moment, was the first to speak and break the silence. Put on your clothes first. Zulin did not answer Zhao Feng's question, but looked at Zhao Feng and said. Oh, okay. But can you also turn around for a moment? After all, boys also have privacy, right? Xiao Feng sat in the water and scratched his head. Tisk, what's so good about that, a little brat? Zulin pretended to be uninterested and rolled her eyes at Zhao Feng, but eventually turned away. In a moment, Zhao Feng, who had put on his clothes, came to Zulin's side. You, what are you doing here? Zulin looked at Zhao Feng who was walking towards her and took a step back in panic. I just came to take a look at this passage. Zhao Feng looked at Zulin and touched his nose. Oh. Zhu Lan replied with one word after hearing this. Well, how about going down and taking a look? Xiao Feng asked. Zulin answered the question. The two went down the passage. On the way, Zhao Feng learned the reason why Zulin was here. Like Zhao Feng, she had no place to live and happened to meet Sha Bo. The difference was that Zulin relied on her clever brain to guess the riddle and moved in. The two stopped in front of a big door. Zhao Feng walked forward, put his hands on the door handle, and pushed it open. A battlefield standing on the magma appeared in front of Zhao Feng and Zulin, surrounded by rock walls. It's not easy, you actually found this place. Sha Bo appeared on the other side a moment later, looked at Xiao Feng and the others, nodded with satisfaction, and then took off his beard and wig. PFF'd. Uncle, no, I should call you Uncle Sha, the leader of the Red Lotus Gym. Seeing Uncle Sha taking off his wig and revealing his baldness, Xiao Feng almost couldn't help laughing out loud. Of course. Sha Bo nodded in confirmation with his shiny bald head. In that case, Master Sha Bo, since you are here, let's start the gym challenge now. Xiao Feng, trying to hold back his smile, invited them to compete. No problem, the game will be in 3v3 mode until all the elves on one side lose their ability to fight. Go, Nine-Tailed Fox. After accepting the invitation and announcing the rules of the game, Sha Bo took out an elf from his pocket and threw it into the battlefield. A white light flashed, and a fox waving 9 tails appeared in front of everyone. Name: Nine-Tailed Fox LV42. Zhao Feng stood in the command area, and Zulin walked aside to watch the battle. Go ahead, Gyarados. Xiao Feng sent out Gyarados. Roar. The Gyarados behind Zhao Feng roared and flew to the battlefield. Gyarados, start with Dragon Dance. Xiao Feng gave the first instruction for the buff skill. Gyarados spun in the air and flew back, and then the red energy entered his body, and his momentum became even stronger. Nine-Tailed Fox, let's use the Flame Jet. Sha Bo saw that Xiao Feng prioritized attack and speed, and quickly issued an attack order to Nine-Tailed Fox. In an instant, the flames in Nine-Tailed Fox's mouth gathered into a flame column and sprayed out at Gyarados. Gyarados, charge forward, Water Tail. After Gyarados's Dragon Dance ended, Xiao Feng looked at the jet of fire shot from the opponent and reacted immediately. In an instant, the water flow surrounded Gyarados' tail. Gyarados flew up and rushed towards the jet of fire, and then swung his tail with the water flow diagonally downward. The jet of fire was instantly split into two, and was split in the middle by Gyarados's water tail. Gyarados continued to attack and swung water tail from bottom to top, hitting the chin of the 9 tails. Swoosh! The 9-tailed fox was pulled off the ground by Gyarados and flew towards the top of the rock wall. It was stunned and, boom, and smashed into the rock wall several meters deep. Its eyes were circling and it could not fight. This, Sha Bo's eyes were filled with astonishment, and he looked at the 9-tailed fox in disbelief. Zhu Lan, who was standing by, also had a flash of surprise in her eyes. Xiao Feng's Gyarados's damage is a little beyond expectations. It's really interesting. Come back, Ninetales. It's your turn now. After coming back to his senses, Shabo raised the Pokeball to retrieve Ninetales, then took out another Pokeball and threw it into the field. A bipedal Pokémon covered in armor and with horns on its head appeared in front of Zhaofeng and his party. Name: Armored Tyrannosaurus Rex LV-46. The battle continues. Gyarados, pray for rain. Zhaofeng gave the order, and Gyarados roared at the sky. When he looked up, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and it began to drizzle. Then it kept getting bigger and covered the entire field. Ironclad Tyrannosaurus, use the ramming method. Seeing that the situation was not good, Shabo quickly launched an attack on the ironclad Tyrannosaurus. The ironclad Tyrannosaurus opened its mouth and roared, then started running on its feet, its body glowing white, and slammed into the Gyarados, causing gusts of wind and waves. The rain was blocked out by the wind and could not get in. Zhaofeng looked up at the Gyarados running over, and gave the next instruction: we will also use the ramming method. Roar. Gyarados roared, and his body glowed like an arrow, driving the rain to follow. In the eyes of Tyrannosaurus Rex, Gyarados's ferocious figure quickly grew larger. The two sides met at one point in the blink of an eye. Bang! The armored Tyrannosaurus flew back in an instant. In the blink of an eye, a loud bang was heard, and the flying Tyrannosaurus crashed into the rock wall outside the field behind it. Rocks flew everywhere, and huge pain attacked its whole body, as if its whole body was paralyzed and could not move. End it, water cannon. Seeing the opponent like this, Xiaofeng immediately spoke up to finish off the opponent. Gyarados opened his bloody mouth, and a huge stream of water gathered to form a huge spiral water column that quickly bombarded the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the rock wall. The water cannon accurately hit the armored Tyrannosaurus. Boom! The whole body of the iron-armored Tyrannosaurus was submerged by the water cannon. After the water flow that hit it fell, there would be a follow-up water flow to hit its body. The iron-armored Tyrannosaurus only felt that its body fell into the blue ocean. Without the supply of oxygen, the water flow continued to flow into its mouth and nose, making it difficult to breathe. The terrifying feeling of suffocation came, and emotions such as hesitation, confusion, and helplessness surged into his heart. After a while, his eyes gradually dimmed and fell into darkness. After the water cannon stopped, the iron-armored Tyrannosaurus suddenly had circles in his eyes, and he could not fight. Come back, Tyrannosaurus, you are already good enough. The next one is you, Charmeleon. Shabo looked at the Gyarados in front of him, raised his hand with a heavy expression to take back the Tyrannosaurus, and then called out to the magma. A black shadow flashed in the magma, and then the black shadow became bigger and bigger. Crash! The figure jumped high and rushed out of the magma, landing nimbly in the battlefield. Looking closely, a fire-attributed Pokémon with standard dead fish eyes and a mouth shaped like a duck appeared in front of everyone. Name: Duck-billed Fire Dragon LV-49. Seeing the duck-billed fire dragon appear, Xiaofeng complained quietly, no matter how you look at it, it's quite abstract. I always feel like pulling it out. What's going on? Puff. Zulin was closer to Zhaofeng, so she heard the complaints and looked into the eyes of the duck-billed fire dragon, and laughed unconsciously. Then she saw Shabo and Zhaofeng looking over in confusion. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, you guys continue. Looking at the two people looking at her, Zulan hurriedly signaled them to continue fighting, and only breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Xiaofeng continue to pay attention to the battle. Gyarados, use waterfall climb. Xiaofeng, who had turned his attention to the battlefield, took the lead in commanding the attack. Roar. Gyarados roared in response. Suddenly, a huge wave suddenly appeared in the field. Gyarados continued to climb to the highest point of the wave and began to roll towards Charmander with the wave. Charmander, use jet flames to break through the waves and carve out a way out. Looking at the huge range of the waves, Shabo, who looked solemn, suddenly had an idea in his mind and shouted loudly to Charmander. Charmander heard Shabo's voice in his ears as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. His face lit up, and the flames in his mouth instantly spurted out and hit the center of the wave. There was a constant sizzling sound of water and fire colliding. As the flames continued to increase their thrust, the jet flames forcibly opened a hole in the heart of the wave. Then, Charmander exerted force with both feet, kicked the ground and jumped up, intending to escape from the hole. Zhao Feng saw this and raised the corner of his mouth slightly, smiling mysteriously. Haha, how could I let you escape easily, Gyarados, dive into the waves and use replacement. Gyarados grinned after hearing this, dived into the waves, and immediately used the replacement skill. In Sha Bo's unbelievable eyes, Charmander weirdly exchanged positions with Gyarados. What the hell is going on? Sha Bo raised his hand, and slapped his Mediterranean hard. The positions were actually swapped, it's incredible. Zhu Lan's equally beautiful eyes were filled with surprise, and her little mouth became, oh. The duck-billed fire dragon was trapped in the huge waves. The moment its fiery red body came into close contact with the huge waves, it suddenly felt a fire spirit's aversion to water, as if it was drowning in a swamp, unable to extricate itself, unable to breathe. After waiting for the huge waves to pass, the duck-billed fire dragon knelt on the ground, supporting itself with its hands, trying not to fall to the ground. The fiery red color on its body seemed to be dull. Charmander, stand up, use big word explosion. Seeing Charmander's bad condition, Sha Bo quickly used the combination of the magic skill, stand up, and big word explosion. Sure enough, the next second, blazing fire began to appear in Charmander's eyes. With its tenacious willpower, it stood up, and then a big, shaped flame flew out of its duck mouth towards Gyarados. Gyarados, use leap to dodge, then ram. Xiao Feng reacted in time when the big character burst came. Gyarados bent its tail and slapped the ground hard. With the powerful reaction force, it jumped high, making the big character burst fly away. In the end, the big character burst turned into a medium character burst and a small character burst and dissipated in the air. Ah, is this how the leaping skill is used? At this moment, Sha Bo was somewhat doubtful about his previous memory. It's a really unexpected jumping skill. Zhu Lan's eyes flashed with something strange, and she felt her mind suddenly become clear. She propped her chin up and thought about whether her Pokémon had similar skills. While the two were still in a daze, Gyarados had already glowed white and rushed towards Charmander. Oh no, Charmander, get out of the way. Sha Bo came back to his senses and quickly tried to use another magical skill, get out of the way. Unfortunately, this time, the goddess of luck had fallen in love with someone else, and the skill, get out of the way, failed to activate. Gyarados quickly and fiercely hit Charmander. Bang! The head of the Gyarados crashed heavily into the face of the duck-billed Charmander with a sound of breaking wind. The duck-billed Charmander's face immediately sunk, and blood splattered. Many images flashed through its eyes, and its mind was in a mess. Then, due to the powerful force of the collision, it drove its body with its head and flew backwards at a high speed. In an instant, it crashed heavily into the rock wall, and obtained the same wall art as the armored Tyrannosaurus. End it, Gyarados, use, True Namo Amitabha Destruction Death Light Gatling. Seeing this, Zhao Feng shouted loudly Gyarados's ultimate move. Boom 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 boom. Gyarados condensed yellow destructive energy in his mouth, and the destructive death beam shot out continuously as if it was free, making waves of breaking air. The duck-billed fire dragon suddenly felt different parts of its body being hit, and its whole body began to tremble constantly because of the attack. The pits on the rock wall became deeper and deeper. His eyes gradually became dull, and he finally lost his ability to fight. At this time, there was some silence in the field. Their cognition was broken one after another. Sha Bo and Zhu Lan stared at Xiao Feng tightly, as if they wanted to see something on his face. Congratulations, Zhao Feng, you won the game. Zhu Lan saw that after looking for a while, she couldn't see anything, so she quickly came to Zhao Feng and congratulated him with a smile. Well, thank you, it's all thanks to Gyarados. Looking at the smiling Zulan, Zhao Feng's eyes flashed with surprise, and then he quickly came back to his senses and thanked Gyarados. Oh, come back, Charmander, you are already great. Sha Bo, who didn't see anything in the end, sighed helplessly, raised the Pokeball, took back Charmander, walked quickly to Zhao Feng, took out a red lotus badge from his pocket and handed it to Zhao Feng. Congratulations, Zhao Feng, this is proof that you have completed the gym challenge. Thank you, Master Sha Bo. But the challenge is not over yet, I still hope to continue to challenge the gym's main competition mode. Xiao Feng took the badge, thanked him, and then smiled gently, putting the preliminary competition badge into his backpack. Then he took out the main competition badge he had won before, showed it to Xiaobo, and invited him to the gym's main competition mode. Come on, my old bones will be broken by you young people sooner or later. Well, I will risk my life to accompany you today. It's been a long time since I participated in the finals, haha. Looking at the finals badge displayed by Zhaofeng, Xiaobo was stunned for a moment, and then laughed. Zulin had a look of understanding, and an imperceptible ray of light flashed in her eyes. She felt complicated. I took my first trip when I was 10 years old, but I didn't get so many finals badges. Xiaobo just went back and prepared to continue the competition. Cry. A long bird song reached the ears of Zhaofeng and others, followed by many, boom, explosions. What happened? This sound is. Xiaobo heard the familiar bird song and felt that something was wrong. He immediately said to Xiaofeng apologetically, Xiaofeng, it seems that our game will be postponed. Something must have happened. I need to go check it out now. It's okay, I'll go with you and take a look. I think I can still help. Xiaofeng waved his hand without minding, and then said that he could help. Well, thank you very much. Xiaobo looked at Xiaofeng and his elves, thought for a moment, and nodded. Seeing Xiaobo nod, Xiaofeng looked at Zhu Lan again, with a trace of concern in his eyes. Zhu Lan, why don't you stay here? It may be dangerous. Zhu Lan caught the fleeting concern, and for some reason she felt a little happy in her heart. But soon she smiled firmly and said, no, I'll go with you. I can help. Don't forget, I'm very strong. Haha, yes, you are the champion. Xiaofeng suddenly remembered Zhu Lan's strength and touched his nose awkwardly. Soon the two followed Xiaobo to the place where the explosion came from. This place was an active volcano. In the center of the volcano, a huge bird wrapped in flames flapped its wings with angry eyes. Its wings were locked by 4 red energy chains and it was difficult to break free. Where each chain came out, there was a man wearing a black uniform with a red embroidered on his chest. The person with the logo is holding an unknown instrument. It is Moltres and Team Rocket. Name: Moltres LV-72. Ding! Trigger the task. Rescue the flamingo, reward 100 racial points. Team Rocket, what are you doing? Let go of Moltres. Xiaobo saw the identity of the person and angrily stopped him. Xiaobo, how are you? You are still so irritable. Oh, and you, little brother, we meet again. At this time, 3 people came out and one of the old men spoke to Xiaobo. It's you. Why are you here? Xiaobo looked at the pupils that shrank suddenly. Why are you talking so much nonsense to him? Don't forget our purpose, Uncle Ming. A middle-aged man among the 3 stepped forward and spoke coldly to stop them. Well, when people get old, they want to reminisce about the past when they see old acquaintances. You are still so unkind, Xiao. Mingbo complained to the middle-aged man. That's right, Xiao, you have to be considerate of the old man, after all, he has 1 foot on the verge of death. The young red-haired lady among the 3 also said. Fei, if you can't speak, don't speak. I'm still very young. Mingbo glared at Yujia. Yes, you are still young. That's enough. Fei spread his hands and spoke helplessly. Hey, it's Mingbo, long time no see, are you so cool now? You even joined Team Rocket. Xiaofeng saw that the other party was chatting casually, so he interrupted with a sarcasm. Hehe, Zhaofeng, long time no see. What do you mean you joined Team Rocket? I am a member of Team Rocket. Mingbo ignored Zhaofeng's tone and smiled. Okay. We are all acquaintances, so how about we make a deal? Release the Moltres and I will pretend you have never been here. How about that? Xiaofeng heard this and asked with an expression that he was a negotiation expert. Hehe, little brother, this won't do. We are here with the boss's order. We must take the Moltres away today. Mingbo was about to speak when Fei interrupted their conversation. All right, let's not talk too much, let's fight. Let's fight. Xiaofeng looked like he had failed in the negotiation. Leave it to me, Uncle Ming. He should have brought his trump card this time, I am quite familiar with him. Xiaobo turned his head to Xiaofeng and said seriously. I can do anything. Xiaofeng nodded in understanding. In that case, leave that woman to me. Zulin glanced at the woman named Fei and smiled confidently at Zhaofeng. No problem, then I will play with this owl. Xiao Feng's mouth curved, looking at the owl in front of him, and smiled gently. After a moment, Sha Bo and Zhu Lan lured each other away not far away. Xiao looked at everything in front of him without any ripples, and did not say a word to stop it. Wow, you look so cool, do you look handsome like this? Xiao Feng looked at Xiao who didn't intend to say anything and teased him. I know you, your name is Xiao Feng. Xiao looked at Xiao Feng calmly and said. Really? It's an honor. Xiao Feng shrugged. I will be here to help the boss get rid of you. Go ahead, Fire Elf. A cold light flashed across Xiao's calm eyes, and he took out a Pokeball from his arms and threw it out. A white light emerged, and a cute four-legged Pokémon with some yellow fur on its head and neck and a red body appeared on the scene. Name: Fire Spirit LV64. Oh, I didn't expect you to look so cold, but you actually like such a cute elf. If you want to get rid of me, it depends on your ability. I leave it to you, Haxorus. Zhao Feng looked at the owl and the fire elf with a strange look, and then sent Haxorus to appear. Fire elf, use Shadow Ball. Xiao's cold voice reached the fire elf's ears. A huge black shadow ball was quickly gathered in front of the fire elf, and then it broke through the air and blasted towards Hakron. Hakron, use Dragon Tail. Looking at the opponent's attack, Zhao Feng quickly asked Hakron to respond. Ni. Haxon nodded to show his understanding. The green dragon power was like armor, condensed on its slender dragon tail, and with the force of thunder, it swept towards the shadow ball. With a whipping sound, the shadow ball was directly extinguished by Haxon's powerful force and disappeared into the air. Hakron, you're not going to return the favor. Use Flash, then the whip. No, the Iron Tail. After dissolving the opponent's shadow ball, Zhao Feng quickly gave the order to fight back. Hakron disappeared in an instant, and in a moment he came in front of the fire elf. His long tail lit up with a metallic color, leaving a trail of afterimages in the air, and quickly whipped the fire elf's waist from right to left. Bang! A sound like an iron rod hitting an object reached the ears of the two. The fire elf's vision became blurred, and the whole elf was no different from a bow, flying to the left. It drew a red stream of light in the air, and soon after it smashed into a raised hill several meters deep. Woo! At this moment, the fire elf felt a violent fracture in its ribs, and it let out an uncontrollable cry. Hearing the fire elf's cry of pain, a trace of horror finally appeared in Owl's cold eyes. What a terrible power, and when did Haxorus teleport? Then Owl quickly suppressed his emotions and shouted loudly to the fire elf in the distance, Fire elf, are you okay? If you can hear me, use Flash Charge. It seemed that Owl's voice was responded to, and flames suddenly appeared in the hills in the distance. The fire elf was soaring into the sky, and in the blink of an eye it rushed out of the hills, covered in flames. The flames burned and swayed violently around the fire elf, making a violent, whoosh, burning sound, and rushed towards Haxorus. Well, good, a very powerful attack. Oh, what a pity, Haxorus, forced to turn around, and then pierce the waist with the iron tail. Seeing the fire elf rushing over so desperately, Zhao Feng nodded, a flash of appreciation in his eyes, and then grinned and gave Haxorus a hint. The fire elf was reversed by an invisible force at the moment of hitting Haxorus, and turned its back to Haxorus, revealing a fatal flaw. Haxorus, seizing the opportunity, instantly steeled the sharpest part of its tail, raised it forward and pierced the waist of the fire elf who was facing away from it. Puff! Puff! After stabbing the left side, stab the right side. Woo! Then the fire elf turned around and the flames around him dissipated. He fell in front of Hakron with a wailing sound as if he had turned gray and petrified. Tears gushed out of his eyes, as if his life had lost its color. Nepal. At this moment, Haxorus was trembling with excitement, and he let out a long cry. He felt an unprecedented sense of comfort all over his body. He fell into a short period of sage time, and finally understood why the electric shock monsters were so obsessed with kidneys. Let's put an end to it, Hakron, tighten your grip. Seeing that the opponent had lost the will to fight, Zhao Feng asked Hakron to give it a good time. Upon hearing this, Hakron, as graceful as a long snake, leaned down and surrounded the fire spirit on the ground, and then suddenly retracted his body. Crack, crack. The sound of bones breaking continued to be heard. The fire elf lost its will, its pupils suddenly dilated, and a huge pain as if its whole body was crushed came over it. Finally, its eyes lost focus and began to circle, losing its ability to fight. Ah, old Xiao, you can't do this. Didn't you say you wanted to get rid of me? Hurry up and change to another one. Xiao Feng tilted his head and said to Xiao with a face that deserved a beating. At this time, Xiao's originally calm face had become gloomy. He raised his hand to put the fire spirit back into the Pokeball and threw out another Pokeball. Super Power King, it's you. Name: Super Power King LV69. Oh, a fighting type. Come back, Hakron, let the electric beast go up and play. Xiao Feng saw the new Pokemon released by the opponent, so he called Hakron back and let the electric beast go up to fight. Ah! The electric beast shouted happily and ran up to replace the Haxorus. After the Haxorus came back, he rubbed Xiaofeng's cheek affectionately with his head. Haha, okay, I know you did a great job. Xiao Feng smiled and patted Hakron's head. Super King, bodybuilding. The owl in the distance took the lead in issuing the command. Super King shook his arms, and his muscles swelled up, giving off a faint luster. Electric shock monster, we also use bodybuilding. It's a head-on game. Seeing Chao Li Wang showing off his muscles to him, Xiao Feng grinned and gave the same command to the electric shock monster. Ah! The electric shock monster raised the corner of its mouth, raised its arms and crossed them in front of its chest, clenched its palms tightly, and its muscles were also knotted, with a faint glow flashing in between. Humph, pretending, Super Power King uses the tile-splitting skill. Xiao watched Xiao Feng make the same command, snorted coldly and issued an attack command. After Super Power King received the order, he spread his legs and rushed towards the electric shock monster quickly, raising his right hand high and shining a strong light. Haha, we can also use the tile splitting to shock the monster, smash it and send it flying. Xiao Feng laughed at this scene. Ouch! The electric shock monster roared and rushed towards the attacking Super Power King. A fierce white light burst out from his right hand. After raising it, it slashed at Super Power King fiercely. In an instant, the two sides met at a point. Bang! The electric shock beast's arm slashed at the arm of the Super Power King, which was instantly knocked away. Then it slashed at the Super Power King without hesitation. The Super Power King was hit head-on and flew back in the direction he was rushing from. Right now, the electric shock monster, flash and then used the iron tail to whip it. At this moment, Xiao Feng's voice reached Xiao's ears. The electric shock monster's figure suddenly disappeared and came to the sky above the flight path of the Super Power King. Its two tails lit up with metallic light and fiercely whipped the Super Power King below. Not good. Super Power King, quickly use the defense. Xiao's voice reached Super Power King's ears in time. Super Power King, who was flying backwards, quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a yellow energy protective shield quickly stood up. With two clangs, the iron tail hit the protective shield, making a sound of metal colliding. The protective shield was hit by the electric shock monster and suddenly stopped, smashing on the ground, completely sinking into it. When the protective shield disappeared, the electric shock monster fell steadily and stood not far away, while the Super Power King was in a circular deep pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters. Oh, hold on, next time you'll have to rely on luck to activate your skills. Seeing that the electric shock monster's attack was ineffective, Xiao Feng was not worried and smiled and joked. The opponent's strength is far greater than Chao Li Wang, and he also has that annoying skill. Chao Li Wang uses the true energy bullet to attack from a distance. A gloomy look flashed across Xiao's eyes, and then he gave up the close combat method and commanded Chao Li Wang. Chao! Li Wang jumped out of the pit and stood on the ground. He held his big palms to the right side of his waist. White light emerged from his palms and gathered to form a true energy bullet. Then Chao Li Wang slammed the true energy bullet towards the electric shock monster with his palms forward. Electric shock monster, room, no, use replacement. Xiao Feng raised his hand and waved his index finger upward, then put it down again. In an instant, Chao Li Wang was forced to exchange positions with the electric shock monster, and his own chi bomb hit his back fiercely. Chao Li Wang staggered forward, his legs softened, and he knelt on the ground panting. Asshole, you little brat actually cheated, what is cheating? Xiao's cold face finally couldn't hold back any longer. Looking at Qiao Li Wang, who was hit by his skills, he pointed at Xiao Feng with his right hand with an angry look on his face. Ah, is this character collapse? Looking at such an angry Xiao Feng didn't know how to start for a moment. But seeing such a good opportunity in the field, Xiao Feng didn't intend to let it go. Well, forget it, it's none of my business. The electric shock beast uses 1,000,000 tons to score a second goal and hit the waist punch. Ouch! The electric shock monster received the order, and its hands lit up with intense light. It continuously crossed and hit the waist of the Super Power King on the ground from left to right. Boom! 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 The Super Power King's face turned pale instantly, and then under the powerful force of the electric shock monster, it came into close contact with the ground. Its body transmitted the power to the ground. With Super Power King as the center, the surrounding rocks bulged upwards in the blink of an eye, and the ground continued to break and extend to the distance. After the electric shock monster's attack, Super Power King's eyes were full of circles, and it was obvious that he could no longer fight. Come back, Superpower. Don't be too proud, kid. Go, Subject 8, this is your first battle since you were born, tear them apart for me. At this time, Owl's face had changed from indifference to anger. He raised the Pokeball to take back Superpower, then took out a strange black and red Pokeball from his pocket and threw it into the field. With a flash of red light, a strange Pokémon appeared on the field. Its entire body seemed to be pieced together from different Pokémon parts: the head of Charizard, the body of Blastoise, the feet of Bulbasaur, and the 4 hands of Bulbasaur. It looked so out of place. And its expression was dull, without any emotion. Name: Experiment Number 8 LV73. This is a living elf experiment. Xiao Feng looked at the experimental subject number 8 in front of him, narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at Xiao, and a barely perceptible cold light flashed in his eyes. Number 8. Use the big word explosion and water cannon combination attack. At this time, Xiao gave an order to the experimental subject number 8 with a sinister look in his eyes. The flames in number 8's mouth condensed into a big word explosion and blasted at the electric shock monster. Then the gun barrel on his back stretched forward. 2 huge water cannons followed the big word explosion and fired alternately towards the electric shock monster. Electric shock monster, flash, split the tiles. Xiao Feng suppressed his inner restlessness and quickly commanded the electric shock monster. The electric shock monster dodged the opponent's attack and came to the top of number 8's head. It raised its arm and shone with white light, smashing towards number 8's head, trying to knock number 8 unconscious directly. Number 8, use the shell shrinking function. Seeing the electric shock beast suddenly appear in the sky, Xiao quickly issued an order to the subject No. 8. After receiving the order, the subject number 8 quickly retracted his head and limbs into his shell. The electric shock beast's splitting tile hit number 8's shell, making a loud bang sound, and smashed the subject number 8 into the ground. Then a crack sound came, and cracks began to grow and spread from the place where number 8's shell was hit. No. 8 screamed in pain inside the shell. Use the tile splitting skill continuously to break its shell for me. Looking at the opponent who was acting like a turtle, Xiao Feng frowned. Upon hearing this, the electric shock monster's hand lit up white light again and smashed the turtle shell on the ground. Don't let him succeed. Number 8, use the explosive fist to fight back. The voice of the owl sounded quickly. Suddenly, 4 arms stretched out of the tortoise shell, and then the arms and fists lit up white light, and swung forward towards the electric shock monster. Dang, dang, dang. The 4 arms hit the electric shock monster, but only made a sound of hitting steel, and there was no effect. The electric shock monster stood in front of number 8's tortoise shell and used the splitting tile to raise and chop down without caring. In a short while, the cracks in the tortoise shell were all over the body. At the place where it was hit, number 8's head was clearly visible. Number 8, use sunshine blaze at close range. Looking at number 8 in this state, Owl fiercely ordered number 8 loudly. No. 8's tortoise shell was broken on his head, and he opened his mouth wide to quickly gather the power of light. Innocent, electrocute the monster, plug it in the mouth. Then give it a thunder fist and end it. Ouch. Zhao Feng's voice came to the electric shock monster's ears. His eyes moved slightly, and a thick iron rod suddenly inserted into the mouth of No. 8, who was condensing the flames of sunlight. He interrupted his spell. Then he clenched his right fist, and thunder burst. A large amount of lightning gathered in his hand, and there was a tendency to materialize, making a crackling sound. He swung it down fiercely, bringing a sonic boom and hitting No. 8's exposed head heavily, hammering his head deep into the ground, and sand and stones flew. Instantly, a burnt smell came into everyone's nose. Number 8 actually lost. Xiao was a little dazed, looking at the experimental subject number 8 who had lost his ability to fight. His eyes were filled with confusion. How is it impossible? Just when Xiao was distracted, a cold voice came from behind him, accompanied by a fierce pain in his lower body. Xiao Feng had been standing behind Xiao without knowing when, holding a stainless steel pick in his hand. The sharp end of the pick had passed through his crotch and pierced into Xiao's indescribable coon. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream suddenly came out of Xiao's mouth. When Xiao Feng let go of his hand, Xiao covered the place where the pain came from with both hands and collapsed to the ground in a bow shape. Ah! It can't be used anymore. I was a little impulsive. Where are the thousands of elf coins? I need to buy a new weapon. At this time, Xiao Feng stood behind Xiao, regardless of Xiao's condition, and looked at the newly bought pickaxe with heartache. He kicked Xiao's butt, vented for a while, then took out a wrench from his backpack and hit Xiao's head with it. Ah, I am such a good person. Seeing him in so much pain, I was kind enough to help him get rid of it. Xiao Feng looked at Xiao who had fainted from the knock, raised his hands and touched his face, revealing a narcissistic and good for him expression. JPG. After being narcissistic, Zhaofeng squatted down, pried open Owl's palm, picked up the Pokeball of experiment number 8 in his hand, stood up and took a look, then took back the unconscious No. 8. Looking at the Pokeball in his hand, Zhaofeng sighed and planned to pass it to Professor Oak to see how to deal with its situation. After all, its birth was not its own will. After dealing with Xiao, Zhaofeng turned to look at Sha Bo. The two sides were evenly matched. After all, they knew each other well. Ming Bo had a trick up his sleeve when he fought Zhaofeng before. It was a Blizzard King with grass and ice attributes from other regions. It was considered a pretty good Pokémon. Zhaofeng no longer paid attention to Sha Bo. After all, what was so good about a man? He still had to look at the young lady. Zhaofeng turned his head again to look at the battle on Zulan's side. At this time, Zulan was commanding Garchomp to fight a fierce battle with phased Pokémon Nidoqueen. Of course, Zulan's Garchomp had overwhelming strength and forced Nidoqueen to retreat step by step. Finally, use Dragon God Dive to end it. Zulan looked calm and confidently commanded the Lebite Land Shark. Ouch! Garchomp roared, and leapt into the air with his legs full of energy. His body was surrounded by cyan energy, and he dived down at the opponent. Bang! The dived Garchomp hit Nidoka hard, smashing it into the ground, and thick dust rose. The dust dissipated, and Nidoka lay in the pit with her eyes circling, losing her ability to fight. Well, Zulan's Garchomp is very well cultivated, worthy of being her initial Pokémon. Zhaofeng looked at Garchomp and nodded, praised him and then looked at Fei opposite. This woman has had that expression from the beginning. How much does she look down on me? And why is she so strong? Fei looked at Zulan opposite. His face was extremely ugly at this moment. His fingers clenched into fists. His long nails pierced into his palms, leaving red marks. Then a flash of scarlet flashed in his eyes. He angrily took out a pistol from his pocket, pointed it at Zulan and pulled the trigger. In that case, then you go to hell. Zulan, be careful. Zhaofeng, who happened to see this scene, shouted loudly, and then flashed in front of Zulan. Bang! A gunshot rang out, deafeningly reaching the ears of everyone present. Zhaofeng, are you okay? Zulan looked at Zhaofeng in front of her and ran to Zhaofeng anxiously to check on him. Ah, I'm fine. It seems I didn't hit you. I'm so lucky, ha ha ha. Zhaofeng looked at Zulan, who was nervous, and laughed heartily with his hands on his hips, then quietly stretched out his leg to kick away the bullet that had fallen. Phew, luckily nothing happened, otherwise I would really feel guilty for the rest of my life. Zulan breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this, and then her eyes turned cold, looking at Fei opposite her, full of anger. How is it possible? I clearly aimed at him, why is he still fine? At this time, Fei looked at Xiao Feng in a daze, and it was hard for her to accept it. Greek. Use Dragon's Fury. Just as Fei was still in a daze, an angry command came into her ears. She saw a dragon-shaped multicolored energy wave suddenly ejected from the mouth of the Greek opposite her, shooting towards her at high speed. Then came a sharp pain that swept through her body, and the figures of Zhaofeng and Zulin in her eyes kept getting smaller. With a bang, Fei was hit by the dragon's fury of Levite Lu Shark and fell to the ground, fainting. Ah, now only Sha Bo and Ming Bo are left. Shall we go over and take a look? Seeing Fei fainted, Xiao Feng turned to look at Zhu Lan and asked. Yeah, okay. Zhu Lan saw Xiao Feng suddenly turned his head to look at her, and was stunned for a moment before responding. Then the two of them walked towards the area where Sha Bo and the others were. Hey, Ming Bo, your two companions are gone, what are you waiting for? Surrender, how about leniency? Zhao Feng came near the two and started trash talking, trying to disrupt Ming Bo's fighting rhythm. You actually defeated Xiao, who came out with subject no. 8. Ming Bo turned around when he heard Xiao Feng's voice, and it was hard for him to accept it. And looking at Xiao's appearance, Ming Bo's eyes widened almost bulging out, and he felt a cool breeze blowing below, and then he raised his hands above his head and squatted down with his hands on his head. I surrender, hee hee. Ming Bo squatted down and laughed obscenely. Just kidding, he didn't want to become like that guy over there and lose his happy life in the future. Of course, he probably wouldn't have a happy life in the future. Fortunately, Kun Kun was saved, right? Haha, I like guys like you, Ming Bo, you are so tactful. Zhao Feng came to Ming Bo and squatted down, stretched out his right hand and patted his shoulder, grinning. Hee hee, yes. Ming Bo looked at Zhao Feng beside him and smiled, but a fierce light flashed in his pupils. A dagger suddenly appeared in his right hand and stabbed at Zhao Feng's chest. But the familiar feeling of insertion did not appear in Ming Bo's hand. Oh, Uncle Ming, what are you doing? Playing with a knife will make you pee your pants at night. Xiao Feng's voice came from the right side of Uncle Ming. Crows fly by. Ming Bo turned his head mechanically and saw Xiao Feng looking at him with a smile on his face, but there was a hint of happiness in his eyes. What was going on? And he didn't know when a wrench with a little blood on it appeared in his right hand, and kept tossing it up and down in the palm of his left hand. Haha, misunderstanding, little brother Zhaofeng, listen to my explanation. No, I don't know how this thing appeared in my hand, and I did it subconsciously. Ming Bo looked at Zhaofeng with cold sweat on his forehead and explained. Oh, really? The smile on Zhao Feng's face gradually faded, and then he quickly raised his hand and knocked it down on Ming Bo's head. Bang! Ming Bo's eyes went dark, as if the world had lost its color, and he fell down softly. Brother Zhao Feng, your weapon is quite unique. At this time, Sha Bo and Zhu Lan came to Zhao Feng's side. Sha Bo touched the Mediterranean Sea and looked at the thing in Zhao Feng's hand strangely. Wow, Zhao Feng, you actually have superpowers. Zulin's focus was on Zhao Feng. She quickly circled around him and looked at him curiously. Wow, right. I am the Flash Man who ate the Flash fruit. Looking at Zulin who was like a curious baby in front of him, Zhao Feng stood up with a wrench and laughed like a middle school student. Shining fruit. What is that? Zhu Lan tilted her head and asked in confusion. It's nothing, don't worry about such details. Next, we have to rescue Moltres. Xiao Feng laughed and changed the subject. Soon, Xiao Feng brought the two to the edge of the center of the volcano, raised the wrench in his hand and rushed up quickly, leaving Zhu Lan and Sha Bo, who stopped in confusion. Do you want to go and save them yourself? It's different from what I understand. Isn't fighting the job of the elves? Sha Bo was stunned and muttered. Zhu Lan's mouth was round. Oh, the shape of the characters, looking at Zhao Feng's back gradually going away. Bang 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 bang, Zhao Feng flashed up and hit the rocket team's minions one by one. They wanted to escape, but how could they escape from Zhao Feng who could flash? Several people felt a headache and collapsed. After dealing with several people, Zhao Feng hit the device they dropped with bang bang a few more times. A sizzling sound came from the instrument, and then the instrument began to emit black smoke and lost its function. As the instrument was damaged, the chain connecting the Moltres quickly disappeared. Cry. The flaming bird let out a long and loud cry, flapped its wings happily, and circled in the air. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission and gaining 100 race points. After completing the rescue mission, it was still the same old routine, taking out the illustrated book to Sheikh Junsha, and providing a one-stop service for Xiao and the others. Of course, Xiao was carefully carried away, and no. 8. Zhaofeng was handed over to Professor Oak, who said he would take good care of it and find a safe place for it to live. Thank you, Zhaofeng. Thanks to your help, Moltres was rescued. After everyone successfully rescued Moltres, Xiaobo bowed deeply to Zhaofeng and the others. It's okay, you're welcome. Xiaofeng shook his head to indicate that it was okay. Zhaofeng is right. No need to thank me. This is what we should do. And this time I also saw the legend of the Kanto region as I wished. It was worth the trip. Zulin also waved her hand quickly. Well, haha, I won't say too much. Mr. Shaw, will pay for tonight. Let's eat and drink well and have a night's rest. Zhaofeng, we will have the gym competition tomorrow. Xiaobo saw this and smiled heartily, and spoke to Zhaofeng and the others in a heroic manner. Mr. Shaw is a straightforward person. Let's go. Xiaofeng raised his right hand and cheered, leading the charge, and together with the elves and the two of them, they went to a famous elf restaurant in Honglian City to prepare a big meal. In the private room of the elf restaurant. Huff, huff, huff. Xiaobo looked at Xiaofeng and his elves sweeping away everything in their path, with a look of astonishment on his face. Xiaobo helplessly touched the Mediterranean Sea. Well, how should I put it? It's quite real, okay. Puff. Slow down, no one is going to snatch it from you. Zulin, who was sitting next to Zhaofeng, laughed out loud as she watched Zhaofeng squeal while eating, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes, and then handed 2 tissues to Zhaofeng. Zhaofeng naturally reached out to take the tissues, wiped his mouth and said thank you, thank you. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Zhaofeng and his party returned to the B&B and had a good night's sleep. Nothing happened that night, and when they woke up early the next morning, Zhaofeng and Zulin were woken up by Xiaobo and came to the active volcano where they had rescued Moltres before, ready to start the Red Lotus Gym finals. The game will be 1v1, and the winner will be decided in 1 round. Xiaobo explained the rules of the game to Xiaofeng. No problem, let's get started. Xiaofeng nodded to show that he understood. Come out, Moltres. Seeing Xiaofeng's agreement, Xiaobo shouted at the magma in the volcano. Cry. With a bird cry, the flame bird flew out of the magma at a high speed, flapped its wings and landed above the magma. This venue is decided to be you, Charizard. Xiaofeng looked at Charizard beside him and nodded, sending him out. Roar. Charizard roared in response, flew over the volcanic magma, and met Moltres' eyes. Moltres, use Air Blade. Both sides were ready, and Xiaobo could not wait to start the attack. Moltres flapped its wings forward fiercely, and huge blue wind blades broke through the air and cut towards Charizard. Charizard, use Big Explosion. Xiaofeng shouted at the Charizard in the air. Roar. The hot flames in Charizard's mouth burned fiercely, and a large character explosion was shot out quickly, hitting the air blade. Whoosh, whoosh, the large character explosion quickly burned the air blade, and then continued to advance towards the opposite flame bird. Moltres uses Hold, then Overheat attack. Seeing Charizard's flames burn the air blade directly, Xiaobo frowned and commanded Moltres to defend with a serious look. Instantly, a yellow energy shield appeared in front of Moltres, resisting the subsequent attack of the big character explosion. When the protective shield dissipated, a huge scorching fireball had condensed in front of it, and the flames kept burning and rotating in it, bombarding Charizard in the blink of an eye. Charizard, Dragon Claw. Hearing Zhaofeng's voice, Charizard shook his arms, and the dragon's power instantly covered it, forming a huge energy claw. Then the dragon wings flapped, and flew forward, and the dragon claw slashed at the attacking Overheat. With a tearing sound, the Overheat flame ball was directly torn into 2 halves by Charizard's claws, and then Charizard continued to slash at Moltres with the energy claws. Moltres moves at high speed to dodge. Xiaobo watched Charizard easily break Moltres' attack, and immediately commanded Moltres to distance himself. Moltres moved quickly in the air, leaving a trail of afterimages behind. Don't let it run away. Charizard flashes and hits it with its iron tail. Seeing that the opponent wanted to escape, Zhaofeng immediately issued a pursuit order. Charizard flashed to the high altitude of the fast-moving Moltres, and its tail behind it lit up with a fierce metallic halo, and it quickly hit the Moltres below. Pa! The flame bird was hit by the iron tail, and it howled in an instant. Its skin and flesh were torn apart, and it was blasted into the magma below. The magma splashed several meters high, and the flame bird went deep into it and did not appear for a long time. Moltres, can you hear me? Use feathers, and then. Seeing that Moltres had not come up for a long time, Xiaobo shouted anxiously, hoping that it would have some effect. Perhaps Xiaobo's shouting worked. Moltres flew out of the magma with a strong red flush all over its body. The places where the skin and flesh were broken were slowly healing. Seeing the state of Moltres at this time, Xiaobo immediately prepared to give it a try. Moltres, use Brave Bird. The moment the command was issued, Moltres glowed with white light and bravely rushed towards Charizard. Tisk, Yuki, what an annoying skill. We should use the defense of Charizard, and then use the Shadow Claw to chop it up into the sky. A smile flashed in Charizard's eyes, and a yellow energy shield instantly covered the whole body, blocking the Moltres wrapped in white light from entering. Then he held the dragon claws with both hands, and the black shadow energy claws condensed in an instant. After cancelling the defense of the protective shield, he swung the right claw at Moltres from bottom to top. He hit its chin hard, bringing out a broken air flow, and blasted it into the sky. Moltres only felt a sharp pain in its chin at this time, as if it was not its own at all. Its vision became more and more blurred, and the sky and the earth turned gray. Charizard, use Shadow Waltz 5 claws. Xiao Feng, watching Moltres being knocked away, shouted to Charizard in the air. The power of Shadow flashed through Charizard's eyes, and his figure flashed to catch up with Moltres, then swung the Shadow Claw of his right hand at Moltres' body, knocking Moltres to the left. Then he flashed to catch up again, and swung the Shadow Claw of his left hand diagonally upward, knocking Moltres high into the sky again, and the combo ended after 5 consecutive attacks in different directions. Moltres was hit continuously in different directions, and the whole bird was dizzy, and severe tearing pain came from different parts of its body. Then his eyes went black, and circles appeared as he fell towards the magma below. Charizard, you win, catch it. Xiaofeng saw that Moltres had lost its ability to fight, and shouted to the Charizard in the air. The Charizard nodded, flapped its wings and quickly caught up with Moltres, hugged it, glided, and landed steadily on the edge of the volcano at Xiaobo's position, then flew back to Xiaofeng and gave him a thumbs up. Haha, yes, yes, you are the best. Xiaofeng saw Charizard's gesture and praised with a big laugh. Seeing that the victory was decided, Xiaobo exhaled and checked the condition of the flame bird. After seeing that it was fine, he walked to Xiaofeng and raised the corner of his mouth. Congratulations, I lost. Come, this is what you deserve for defeating me. Then he fumbled in his pocket for a moment, took out a badge and handed it to Zhaofeng. Zhaofeng took the badge with a smile on his face. Thank you, Master Xia. Ding! Congratulations to the host for getting 40 racial points, and gaining the slide skill effect. Summon a humanoid phantom that can freely grow and shrink, and slide on the enemy, making it 100% face down. After getting the badge, Zhaofeng and Zulin said goodbye to Xiaobo and left. The two were about to embark on a new journey. Walking on the streets of Honglian City, the two held a hot spring ice cream each. Zhaofeng ate the ice cream in his hand and turned to look at Zulin. We are leaving, Zulin, have you decided where to go next? There is no plan yet, what about you, Zhaofeng? Zulin put her thumb and index finger on her chin, thought for a moment, and asked back. Zhaofeng looked back at the extended road in front of the street, showing a firm look. Of course I will keep moving forward. Now I have 7 badges, and I only need 1 more to be eligible to participate in the Quartz League competition. Really? Which gym are you going to challenge with your last badge? Zulin looked at Zhaofeng curiously. A strange color flashed across Zhaofeng's eyes, and he thought for a moment, Tequiwa Gym. There is a person there I want to see. Really? Then I wish you success in your challenge. Zulin looked at Zhaofeng's determined profile and started to wish him well. Zhao Feng collected his thoughts and turned his head to look at Zulin again, and the two looked into each other's eyes. Zhao Feng looked at the person in front of him with some hope in his eyes. Since you don't have any plans, how about traveling with me? Well, since there's nothing to do, let's just treat it as a trip. Zulin was stared at by Zhao Feng, and a blush appeared on her cheeks. Do you agree? Xiao Feng was stunned for a moment, then a happy smile appeared on his face, and he danced with joy. Haha, that's great. Just like that, in joy, Zhu Lan joined Xiao Feng's travel team. Before leaving for the trip, Xiao Feng went to the hardware store and bought 2 things to put in his backpack. Zhao Feng and his companion, who received the Red Lotus tournament badge from Gym Master Sha Bo, continued their journey with the elves towards Viridian City. On the way, Zhao Feng allocated the 140 racial points he obtained to Gengar's special attack, 40, Haken's physical attack, 20, and Gyarados' physical attack, 80. And through leveling up through battles, the levels of the elves have made new breakthroughs. Charizard LV62, Electabuzz LV60, Lizard King LV56, Gengar LV53, Haken LV48, Gyarados LV40. At this time, in a mountain forest, Zhao Feng commanded Gyarados to fight, destroy the death ray, put an end to it. Roar. Gyarados opened his mouth and quickly gathered destructive energy, making a whistling sound. He shot the opponent to the ground with one strike. Zhao Feng is really working hard. Zulin was making lunch on the side, watching Zhao Feng directing the battle in the distance. She sighed, then waved to Zhao Feng, it's time to eat. Upon hearing that, Zhao Feng immediately turned around and rushed back to Zulin with Gyarados. Hey, here we come, let's eat, let's eat. Really, I feel like a starving ghost. I don't know how you survived in the past. You couldn't even cook. Zulin rolled her eyes at Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng scratched his head and said, in the past, we used the sky as a blanket and the ground as a bed. When we were hungry, we just picked some fruits from the trees. We never had such a rich war. Besides, I don't have such good cooking skills as you. Okay, here, this is yours. Hearing the praise, Zulin nodded with satisfaction and handed Zhao Feng a bowl of steaming hot rice. Thank you. Zhao Feng quickly took it and started eating. Zulin sighed when she saw Zhao Feng like this, and then served food to Charizard and Land Shark respectively, and then sat beside Zhao Feng and ate elegantly, forming a sharp contrast with Zhao Feng. Tap 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 tap. Zhao Feng and Zulin, who were enjoying a delicious lunch, heard many hurried footsteps coming from deep in the mountains. Zhao Feng looked in the direction of the sound, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. What happened over there? Then he saw that the sky seemed to be blocked for some reason. Zhao Feng and Zulin looked up and saw an ancient city standing up miraculously. Oh my god, Zulin, the city has grown mechanical legs. Zhao Feng raised his hand and pointed at the city that covered the sky, and turned to look at Zulin with a surprised look on his face. Yes, that's right. It's my first time seeing this too. Zulin blinked her eyes, a hint of curiosity about the unknown flashing in them. Boom. The city began to move slowly, and no one knew where it was going. As the city slowly moved, the habitats of the elves began to be trampled and destroyed by the giant mechanical legs. The elves fled in all directions, losing their homes. Seeing this, the two people's faces darkened. This won't work, we need to find a way to stop it. Zulin, let's go up and take a look. Zhao Feng looked at Zulin with a questioning look. Zulin and Zhao Feng nodded in response. Go. Seeing Zulin agreed, Zhao Feng put the elves into the elf balls, leaving only Charizard to take the two to the Sky Ancient City. After flying for a long time, Zhao Feng and the other two landed at the edge of the ancient city under the leadership of Charizard. Then Zhao Feng released the elves again and let Gengar hide in Zulin's shadow just in case. Zhao Feng and the other two looked around. Starting from the edge of the ancient city, the city was like 6 steps rising step by step. There were houses and buildings on each floor. There were stone stairs connecting the steps upwards. At the highest point in the center stood a tall hexagonal tower. The top floor of the tower emitted a strong red light. It seems that the hexagonal tower is the core of controlling this city. Zulin thought for a moment after seeing this scene and made a rough guess. Zhao Feng nodded in agreement. Well, let's go there first. The two quickly came to the stone stairs leading to the upper floor. Just as the two were about to step onto the stairs, Zhao Feng heard a whoosh sound in his ears, and hurriedly pulled Zulin's hand and took a step back. Charizard, there is a situation. Dragon Claw. Upon hearing this, Charizard quickly condensed the Dragon Claw and turned around to swing in the direction of the sound. Clang! The Dragon Claw split a huge rock that came from nowhere into two. Zhao Feng looked up at the place where the sound came from, and saw two figures appearing on the upper right side of the stone stairs. It's Raiden and Onyx. Zulin followed Zhao Feng's gaze and saw the figures that suddenly appeared. The two elves' eyes glowed red as they leapt down from the sky and blocked Zhao Feng and the other two. Zhao Feng saw the red light in their eyes and frowned. Well, it looks like they are being controlled. They are trying to stop us from going up. One each, let's make it quick and decisive. Well, leave Raiden to me, Garchomp, use Tile Chop on Raiden. Zulin looked at the Raiden on the opposite side and gave the order to attack. Zhao Feng followed closely and looked at the Electabuzz next to him. We'll go too, Electabuzz, use Tile Chop on Onyx. Following the orders from Zhao Feng and Zulin, the electric beast and the Leebite Garchomp rushed forward at lightning speed. In a moment, white light appeared on both arms. When approaching the strange power and Rumble Rock, the legs suddenly bent and jumped up, raising the arms and slashing forward with great force, bringing bursts of cracking sounds. Seeing this, strange power crossed his four arms and flashed white light. He ran and swung at the electric beast that was attacking him, wanting to wrestle. Rumble Rock hugged his body, spun and rolled forward at high speed, using the stones on the ground as a springboard to crash into the leaping Leebite Garchomp. The two met, and the electric beast's tile splitting broke Strange Power's arm with overwhelming force, and slashed on his shoulder. Crack! The sound of the shoulder bone breaking was heard. Then, due to the huge power of the electric beast, Strange Power flipped back in the direction where he was standing, smashed into the ground, and the rocks broke and the ground cracked, and smoke and dust rolled. When the smoke cleared, Guile was lying unconscious in the pit, and his shoulder was sunken due to the force, leaving a U-shaped hole as thick as the arm of the electric monster. Raiden's experience was roughly the same as Guile, who was also blasted into the ground by the tile cut of the Leebite land shark. The only difference was that a knife scar running through his chest was clearly visible on his body. Well done, electric shock monster, land shark. Zhao Feng and Zulin praised their own elves. Let's go to the next floor. Zhao Feng looked up at the upward stairs and ran up. Zulin nodded and quickly followed Zhao Feng's footsteps. Soon they went up to the second floor and came to the stairs leading to the third floor. Unlike the first floor, there is only one elf guarding the stairs here, and its huge body directly blocks the entire staircase. The whole body is made up of irregular steel spheres, reflecting a strong metallic luster under the sunlight. The tail is as sharp as a sword, the head is relatively large, and the lower jaw is huge, with a mouth full of big white teeth that are shiny. Zhao Feng looked at the elf in front of him curiously. Oh, there is actually Onyx's evolved form, Steelix, here. Leave it to me, Zulin, you take a rest, I will deal with it. Yeah, come on. Zulin pursed her lips and nodded repeatedly, then took out a small stool and started eating melon seeds. Gyarados, I'll leave it to you. Zhao Feng sent Gyarados onto the field. Use Prey Rain. Roar. Gyarados roared loudly at the sky. In an instant, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and countless raindrops fell. The Steelix on the opposite side was hit by the rain, and its body twisted uncomfortably. A trace of anger flashed in its red eyes. Immediately, its sharp tail was raised and slammed down to the ground. The ground began to continuously protrude huge sharp rocks that extended and pierced in the direction of Gyarados. Looking at the attack launched by Steelix, Zhao Feng gave an order to Gyarados. Gyarados, use Slam. Roar. A gleam of light flashed across Gyarados' eyes, and his body glowed with a faint luster. He leapt up and charged towards Steelix with an unstoppable momentum. As he moved forward, the sharp stones that kept stabbing at Gyarados' body only made a ding 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 sound before losing their effect. Bang, bang, bang. The sharp stones that blocked the way were constantly smashed into pieces by Gyarados and scattered all over the ground, but it did not affect Gyarados' progress at all. Finally, Gyarados knocked Steelix away with a headbutt. Swoosh. The Steelix brought a blast of air and fiercely embedded itself into the wall beside the stairs, scattering the gray stones. The Steelix in the wall, with its iron-like body, had a dent in the shape of a Gyarados face where it was hit. Its face was distorted, and its eyes were full of red veins. It was struggling in pain. Oh, it didn't lose its fighting ability, it looks like it's at a high level. Xiaofeng looked at the struggling Steelix and rubbed his chin and murmured, then continued to issue orders to Gyarados. Gyarados, finish it, ultimate impact. Gyarados heard Xiaofeng's voice and flew high into the sky. It was wrapped in purple cyclones and flapped its tail, rushing towards Steelix on the city wall with terrifying might. Steelix in the city wall saw that it could not break free and looked at the charging Gyarados. It condensed a destructive death ray in its mouth and shot at Gyarados. But Gyarados, whose body was wrapped in purple energy, was attacked by Steelix without any hindrance. It dispersed the destructive death ray and continued to move forward and hit Steelix on the city wall. Due to the impact of the huge force, Steelix was embedded deeper in the wall, and its eyes bulged, with more bloodshot on the edges. Even the steel body began to show cracks. Not long after, Steelix in the wall's eyes turned black and fainted with a look of relief. There were circles in his eyes and he could not fight. Good, the needle doesn't poke. Zulin threw away the melon seeds in her hand, stood up, put the small stool into her backpack, and came to Xiaofeng to applaud. Hee. Let's go to the third floor. Xiaofeng smiled at Zulin beside him, and ran towards the stairs leading to the third floor. Not long after, Zulin and Xiaofeng, who had defeated Steelix, quickly went up to the third floor, and then ran towards the stairs leading to the fourth floor. However, the stairs leading to the fourth floor were contrary to the norm and there were no elves guarding them. Xiaofeng looked around and scratched his head in confusion. Hey, why is this place different from before? Could it be that only the first two floors are guarded by elves, and there are none in the back? Zulin pinched her chin with her right hand, thought for a moment and said her guess. Seeing that Xiaofeng couldn't figure it out, he took Zulin and the elves and decided to continue going up. Well, never mind, let's go to the hexagonal tower first. Soon the two came to the stairs leading to the fifth floor from the fourth floor. But unexpectedly, an elf with long flowing golden hair, a pair of small eyes and big pink lips, and a body that seemed to be wearing a red dress was standing in front of the stairs and looking at the two. Well, it's Sister Mikan. Zulin, I'll leave it to you. I'm not very good at dealing with this kind of elves, so I'm counting on you, come on. Xiaofeng looked at Sister Mikan with a strange expression, holding back his smile, and retreated behind Zulin. As a face control, Xiaofeng was really afraid that he would not be able to hold back his laughter during the battle. Xiaofeng, you actually have a Pokémon that you are not good at dealing with, hehe, leave it to me. Zulin's eyes were curved like crescents, and she smiled and gave Xiaofeng a reassuring look, which made Xiaofeng's heart tremble violently, and he shouted in his heart, don't mess with my mind. Zulin smiled and turned to look at Sister Mikan, stretched out her hand to take out a Pokeball from her pocket and threw it out. It's decided to be you. A white light flashed, and a dog-like handsome humanoid elf with black and blue hair except for the beige torso appeared in front of Sister Mikan. Seeing someone coming, Sister Mikan immediately launched an attack, holding her hands in front of her, and the cold air quickly gathered into a blue energy ball, and then suddenly shot out several lightning-like ice rays at the elf in front of her. Lucario, dodge quickly and approach it. At the moment when Sister Lip attacked, Zulin's voice entered Lucario's ears. Thanks for watching.